Hey y'all, Darius Rucker here. You know, a lot of people ask me, what inspires your music? And one of the big things is a strong sense of place. That's why I love my home state of South Carolina and want to share the awesome things it has to offer. From the beautiful mountains down to the sunny coast, it's got it all. Not to mention two of my personal favorites, great golf and amazing food. Come see why I love this place. Visit discoversouthcarolina.com.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
WBSM presents The Tim Meisberg Show, streaming live on WBSM.com and the WBSM app. Call 508-996-0500. Send us app chat messages and open line voicemails using the WBSM app. Now, The Tim Meisberg Show.
Welcome back in, third and final hour here on Friday morning on this first day of March. And joining us now on the line, we have the SouthCoast Bureau reporter for the Publix Radio in Rhode Island, Ben Berke. He's going to be joining us to talk about his article that he has up regarding whether or not gentrification is really going on in New Bedford. Let's bring him up here. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning, Tim. I'm good. How about you?
Doing all right. Good to speak with you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, so this article I found to be very interesting because we've heard that word gentrification thrown around quite a bit about New Bedford. And first of all, let's just kind of lay it out on the table. What is gentrification in your eyes? What would you qualify as that? Because I think it changes a little bit, from community to community.
Definitely. I think one thing that's going on here is people have different definitions of gentrification. To me, I have a really clear definition of it in my mind, and it means when rich people come to a neighborhood, they drive up the prices in the neighborhood, and the people that originally lived there get pushed out because they can't afford to stay. So that's what gentrification means to me, and so when I'm writing this article, I'm trying to investigate whether this specific trend is happening in New Bedford.
And we've heard it talked about now since... for a long time, nobody believed South Coast Rail was actually happening. But now that we're getting closer to it, actually starting up service later on this year, it looks like it is going to change the landscape of the South Coast. It is going to change New Bedford. But is it really going to be bringing in people from other places who are going to cause gentrification?
The train, I think, it brings in what you fear the most. And what I mean by that is, when I talk to people who are afraid of gentrification, they're worried the train is going to bring lots of commuters from Boston and yuppies and hipsters who are going to have more money to splash in New Bedford's housing market, and they're going to drive up the prices. I have a friend who's a police officer, and when I talk to him about South Coast Rail, he says he's worried about it bringing drug addicts down from Boston and all this riffraff. And, between those two conversations I've been having, I've realized we don't know what the train's going to bring, and so in people's minds, it just brings the thing they're most afraid of.
See, I've always kind of gone back to the fact that, first of all, it's going to be like a 90-minute ride from Boston to New Bedford on that train. So, does that really make sense? Is somebody going to get on that train and say, I'm going to go and find, a place to live. I've got all this money to buy a home. I'm going to pass by all these communities that are closer. Nothing against New Bedford, but all these communities that are closer to Boston where I don't have as long of a commute, or that any of those drug addicts or criminals are going to say, yeah, I'm going to get off here as opposed to getting off in, say, Brockton or somewhere else. It just doesn't make sense to me that they would come all the way to the end of the line for these things when there's other opportunities along the way.
It doesn't really make sense to me either. I mean, I can't think of anybody that's dying to get on an MBTA train for 90 minutes at best to Boston. That's on a good day, Tim. And, one thing to keep in mind is, we're basically the last city, along with Fall River and Taunton, to get train service in eastern Massachusetts. Lawrence has had train service. Lynn has had train service. Lowell, Brockton, Worcester, all these places have had train service for decades. And, they haven't turned into the next Brooklyn. And I don't think New Bedford is either. And I can understand why it's frightening to people that it could happen. It would be really bad if that happened, and it's happened in other places. So I don't think people are stupid for fearing it. But I think if you really look at what this train service is going to be and how it's already been in other communities for a long time, it doesn't really make sense that it's going to have the sort of transformational change that people are afraid of.
Well,
here in New Bedford.
We're talking with Ben Berke of the Public Radio in Rhode Island, and rather than just talk about sentiment here, you actually looked at data that actually would bear out whether or not this gentrification is actually happening. So talk to us a little bit about that process and the data that was used.
Right. So I'm looking at a study, a really thorough study of a lot of different kinds of data by Mass Inc., which is a nonpartisan think tank in Boston. They were hired by the Regeneration Committee, which is a group of business and nonprofit executives in New Bedford, to take a look at who's actually moving to New Bedford, who's actually buying up these houses, how much has the rent really gone up. They have all these straightforward questions that we all want to know the answers to, and they have the expertise and the time and the money to really do the math on all the data and count everybody up, which is pretty exceptional. Not many people get to do that. And so my report really dives deep into their findings, and I interviewed the lead researcher on the report. And so if we're trying to evaluate whether or not this train is actually bringing down a ton of people who are commuters from Boston or investors trying to flip properties and make a quick buck in New Bedford, you would expect to see a few things. So for one, you would probably expect to see a large number of people moving to New Bedford from Boston, right? But we are not seeing that in the data. It's not like there's thousands of people or even hundreds of people arriving from Boston every year. It's a pretty small amount, and there's more people arriving from Cape Cod and Brockton, the study found, which is very interesting to me. Another thing you'd expect to see if the train was driving rapid gentrification is you'd see, I think, housing prices going up faster near the train stations, right? If we're imagining that these are people who want to walk to the train and ride it to Boston, you think maybe the area by Klasky Common would become a lot more expensive than the area on Clark's Point, for instance, where it would take a long time to get to the train walking. But we're really not seeing that kind of shading in where housing prices are going up. They've gone up across the board in New Bedford, and they've really gone up the board everywhere in Massachusetts, even in the suburbs, even in the country. This is a problem that every city in the Commonwealth is basically experiencing at the same time. And so to connect it so closely to the train feels like it's just not the most accurate explanation for what's going on.
Well, but as part of this research, there is a more accurate explanation of what's going on. There are some factors that are contributing to the rising prices of properties and rentals. What are some of those factors? Right.
So the study basically breaks this down as a simple function of supply and demand. So New Bedford, we all know it's a historic city. Most of the buildings here are pretty old, unless you get into the far north end. But even those houses tend to be 20, 30 years old, 40 years old now. And so what the study's saying is basically New Bedford hasn't built a lot of housing in a really long time. It's been 100 years since we built all the tenements. It's been 30 or 40 years since we built the more suburban neighborhoods. And we haven't had any kind of large-scale new housing. So, the supply of housing is staying pretty constant. And what the report says is driving up prices is there's been a big increase in the last few years in demand. And what that means is people who want to buy houses and rent apartments. The number of those people is going up in New Bedford. And so the big question is, who are these people driving up demand? Some people assume it's folks from Boston, but we're not seeing that in the data. What we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of younger folks in New Bedford leaving their families' homes for the first time and buying houses and getting apartments for the first time. There's really a large number of people like that because a lot of people were doubling up after the Great Recession, and the economy's a little bit better now, and people are able to get their own places. So we're seeing that as a big demographic that's driving up demand. We're also seeing a lot of working-class people coming into New Bedford who were priced out of Brockton and Cape Cod, who still have jobs up there and out there, but they can't afford to live there anymore, so they're choosing New Bedford. And we're also seeing a lot of immigration from Central America. And none of these three groups of people, local young people or Guatemalan and Salvadorians or people from Brockton and Cape Cod, these aren't really gentrifiers. These aren't people who are going to Starbucks on their way to yoga class and then they're going to work from home at their cushy office job. That's not who these people are, and yet there are so many people who need to live in New Bedford because it's one of the last affordable places in eastern Massachusetts. They're still driving up the prices because there's so few available apartments. And here's how I would sum up this argument that the study makes. If you're a landlord and you've got an available apartment, if you get 20 applications for one apartment, you're going to realize you can raise the rents at that place because there's 20 people who want to live there. And it doesn't matter if none of them are rich yuppies or hipsters from Boston. If there's 20 of them, even if they're all, hard-working, salt-of-the-earth people, that landlord still has the opportunity to charge a higher price. And that's basically what the study says is happening in New Bedford right now. That's the kind of change we're experiencing. Housing prices absolutely are going up fast, and it's painful. And the study absolutely corroborates that, verifies that, validates that. But the cause of all this is different than what a lot of people assume, and that's the point that the study's trying to make and that I'm trying to make now.
Well, what I found to be really the most telling was kind of the way that you ended the piece, which is where Ben Foreman, who is the head of research for Mass Inc., has this quote where he says, "I think everybody worries that New Bedford is going to be discovered one day." And I think that's what's happening, too, is you've got people who are starting to realize, as you said, it is the last kind of affordable place to live in Massachusetts. And it's a really great place to live on top of that. There's a lot of great things that would make people, if they had to choose between here and another community with similar pricing, there's a lot of reasons to want to come to New Bedford, the train just being one of them.
Correct. Yeah. I love living here. It's a beautiful place. I mean, how many places have this kind of access to the beach and you're not getting charged an arm and a leg for rent, although, maybe that's not the case anymore, but for a long time, you could get a good deal on a place in a beautiful part of the state. And yeah, Ben's right. People are not crazy for thinking that, gentrification could happen here. The quality of life here is really good. It's been affordable for a long time. But I think the reality, though, is that to get really large amounts of people with high-paying jobs in Boston, you have to be closer to Boston. I mean, an hour and a half by train or by car each way, I don't think it's enough to convince a whole neighborhood worth of new people to come down here.
I think we might have a question from a caller for you, if you don't mind taking a call.
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's see if we can make it happen here. Good morning. You're on with Ben Berke.
Hey, how you doing? I didn't know I was going to be on with him, but so I guess gentrification is a word that can be, it's like the color yellow. People could describe it in different ways. If you ever have gone out to Westfield, Mass., which is on the other side of Springfield, in the last 15 years, it's improved tremendously. And if anything, it's really just it's allowed more people to come in and visit. And because part of gentrification is businesses come to the town, businesses that they get revamped. Cafe on the street, all of a sudden you want to come to the town. Maybe the town updates the parks and things like that. But I don't see it as a negative. I guess it could be a negative if you're looking at affordability for houses, but that's changing anyway. And like you said, it's really changing because of there's like the average. Go to any realtor, the average amount of homes on the market in Bristol County is 1,400 homes. There's 400 on the market. It's been that way for 6 months. So that in itself is going to, like you said, is going to change the cost of living. But I don't see gentrification as a negative because it actually either the town is improving or it's declining, and I think that the whole point is that you want it to improve, right?
I mean, you want it to improve without hurting or pushing people out who have been here. You know, it's a hard thing to balance, and in a lot of places it becomes impossible to balance. So, you know, while a lot of people would really welcome a nice new restaurant or cafe downtown with better food or better coffee or something like that, you know, there's also a lot of people here who think that's a bad thing. So it's a mixed bag, and that's something that you see a lot in neighborhoods that are afraid of gentrifying. Like the government will be proposing like a really nice service or a nice public improvement, and people in the neighborhood, they get afraid. They don't want it because they're afraid if anything gets nicer, they're going to lose their apartment. And it creates this really messed up, like, perverse situation where some people become afraid of things getting better and life improving because they're so vulnerable. They're worried they're going to lose everything if that happens. Yeah,
I think that along with improving the city, you obviously want to improve it or it's going to be in decline. One or the other is that the mayor and the city has to promote new building and find ways to make that happen along the same time. At the same time, I think you're right in the article. I don't think that the train is going to pull a lot of people from Boston because of the commute. It's a negative. The one thing that would pull people down here is cost of housing and cost of living. Anyway, I think gentrification can be a positive if it's balanced with a more holistic approach about building homes. Or building apartments.
Right.
And the study is very clear in agreeing with you that this city needs to build more homes. The study recommends basically 5,500 new homes in New Bedford alone by the end of the decade.
Right.
And, I mean, that's kind of like a whole new neighborhood in some ways. Of course, it wouldn't actually look like that because they want to see that spread out across the city. But that's the only thing that the study says is really capable of keeping prices stable in the long term. It's just giving people more options of places to live.
Right, and I'll leave you with this: is a lot. I just got back from Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and they have some of those gentrification things going on. So they'll build an outdoor mall, which is a sort of a homesy sort of mall, like something you'd see down in Newport, with a lot of clusters of businesses, and they build an area for that. And then around that and in that, that's where they're building apartments and condos. So condos can, bring people in as well, and the gentrification happens, and the money comes in with it, which is a positive for the city, but it's not impacting the rest of the local area. It keeps housing prices down as long as there's inventory going up, So, anyway,
yeah, that's certainly the.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, Ben.
Oh, I was saying, that's certainly the economic theory, which is if you build a lot more housing, it's going to make the rest of the housing cheap because there's going to be, the buyer's going to have options all of a sudden where they didn't before. And
what I found interesting about the article and the research shows that, yes, New Bedford has had rising, the rental prices have been rising in New Bedford faster than anywhere else, but it's because for so long it was so much behind in a lot of other communities. It was the affordable place to live. I remember, being a young person and telling my friends, well, if you're looking for a place, you're looking to move out on your own, go to New Bedford. You can go get yourself a really nice place for $500 a month. And those days are gone.
Yeah, going fast.
Well, if anybody wants to check out this article, and I highly recommend reading it and getting in depth with it, you can find it at thepublicsradio.org. That's where Ben covers the South Coast, and they have all kinds of great articles, not only about our area, but across southeastern Massachusetts and into Rhode Island as well, of course. And Ben, thank you for joining us and for keeping us up to date with all your great work.
Anytime, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take care. That is Ben Berke. He is the South Coast Bureau reporter for the Public's Radio in Rhode Island. That's going to do it for this first segment of the hour. I am out of time. I have to take a break. Caller, hang on. I will get to you after the news, I promise. But right now, I do have to take this quick break. We'll be back in just a few. You know what? I might even be able to get you in before the news, so hang on. All right, back to the phones, 508-996-0500. You are next on WBSM.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good, and you?
Doing all right.
Question for you.
Yes.
It was, he mentioned 5,500 homes by the end of the decade.
Yes.
So are we talking homes or apartments? Where would they be putting these in New Bedford? Where is there property or enough property to put 55 homes in New Bedford, 5,500 homes?
Right, and that's the issue. So it is dwelling. So it could be apartments, it could be single family homes. But you're right. Where are they going to go? Where is that land? The only way New Bedford can really build is to build up, like what they're doing, downtown, where they're turning some of those. And there are, vacant properties or properties that are going to be. Obviously some of these school buildings, as they build new schools, will be no longer in use. So there is opportunity to use some of those things, but you'll have to do a lot of like what's being done downtown, which is building up with some of these locations.
And then with the 5,500 new homes, I mean, what is going to happen with the tax rate? Because we're talking about wanting people to come to New Bedford, and I heard him say about the cafes, the restaurants, and as we all know, people don't move to New Bedford or any town because we have a great cafe or a great restaurant. It's the school systems, it's the tax base, it's the workforce, the companies that are there that are giving us the chance to make a living now. So I just don't understand. I mean, right now if it isn't the taxes, it's the water that just keeps on increasing. Not only in New Bedford, but in other areas. But New Bedford is gone up quite a lot on their taxes.
And I don't think that, in Ben's piece, I don't think that there's any doubt that it is becoming, harder to afford to live here. I think the point of his piece is just to say that it's not the reasons why people think it is. It's what you're talking about. It's just the nature of how things are going. It's not because the train is coming in that we are seeing these things happen.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing about the train. I mean, yes, it's actually coming to fruition, but I mean, for the last 25 years, that's all we heard about is a train. But, again, an hour and a half ride on a train or an hour and a half ride, I don't know if anybody's going to really be moving here to say, to go to Boston, maybe some other areas closer by, whether it be in the Avon area or Randolph area, they could actually still take the train, I'm sure. So,
right.
Well, listen, I appreciate it, and I like listening to the show. Have a great day.
Thank you for the call. You as well.
Thank you. Bye.
And we are going to go into the newsroom and get all the headlines of the day from Phil. When we come back on the other side, more of your calls, 508-996-0500. And you can send in app chat messages on the WBSM app as well. And we can continue talking about this if you would like to do that. We'll be back, though. Right now, I've got to give it over to Phil to give you all of the world and international headlines.
President Biden invites Donald Trump to work with him on the border. An attack in Gaza kills at least 100. And what Chick-fil-A wants you to throw away.
From the WBSM Newsroom, this is WBSM News.
President Biden is inviting former President Trump to join him in telling Congress to pass the border bill that Trump rallied his allies against earlier in February. Mark Mayfield with more.
The two made visits to the southern border on Thursday as the issue of immigration heats up across both parties. During a briefing in Brownsville, Texas, Biden said that the bipartisan bill is the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill ever seen, saying the time to play politics with the issue is done. Biden went on to call for lawmakers to set politics aside, urging House Speaker Mike Johnson to send the bill to the floor. I'm Mark Mayfield.
At least 100 people are dead after an Israeli attack on a crowd of Palestinians waiting for aid in Gaza City. That's according to a spokesperson for Gaza Health Ministry. The Israeli military said it was reviewing what happened on Thursday, with one Israeli official saying IDF troops responded with live fire after trucks carrying humanitarian aid were surrounded by people. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny will be laid to rest today. Funeral services will be open to the public, but some have warned that mourners who attend may face face a risk. Following Navalny's death at a Russian prison weeks ago, hundreds of people were detained across the country for simply attending one of his memorials. A bill that expands Louisiana's options for methods of execution is on its way to the governor's desk. The state's legislature on Thursday passed the bill authorizing the state to administer capital punishment through lethal injections, the gas chamber, and the electric chair. Supporters say the U.S. Supreme Court has approved all three methods. Several faith leaders are calling the methods inhumane. Those who keep unused sauces from Chick-fil-A might want to throw some of their stash out. The company is telling customers to trash any Polynesian dipping sauces taken home between the 14th and the 27th of February because of allergy concerns. According to a notice on Chick-fil-A's website, a different sauce that has wheat and soy allergens might be in the Polynesian dipping cups. And it's increasingly looking unlikely that HBO Discovery's Coyote vs. Acme will ever see the light of day. The film's lead, SNL alum Will Forte, took to X with his thoughts on the film. He started by saying it looks like no one will ever see it. He described the movie as incredible and shared his frustrations with the studio's decision not to release it.
WBSM Sports, brought to you by Sparks Auto in Dartmouth.
The Boston Bruins snapped their losing streak with a 5-4 win over the Vegas Golden Knights at TD Garden. They visit the New York Islanders tomorrow night. The Red Sox in spring training in Florida, playing the Minnesota Twins this afternoon. And the Celtics hoping to extend their winning streak to 10 games when they host the Dallas Mavericks tonight at TD Garden.
Now your ABC6 South Coast forecast.
Good to be with you, everybody, on this Friday morning under mostly sunny skies. It is cold. Bundle up. The temperature in the mid-20s. Wind chill values this morning in the teens. The wind, fortunately, has subsided, so it is pretty calm. This afternoon, sunny, upper 30s. Overnight tonight, a little bit of cloud cover, mid-30s. As we head into this Saturday, we're expecting showers to develop as we head into the afternoon with temperatures flirting with 50. From the UBC6 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Ceci Del Carmen on New Bedford's News Talk Station 1420 WBSM.
I'm Phil Devitt for WBSM News. Stay up to date with New Bedford's News Talk Station, WBSM, and get all of our content and breaking news alerts with the WBSM app.
And it is time to check in with Eric over at the Butcher Shop and find out about all the great deals they have going on this weekend. Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well. So what's happening over there this morning?
Oh, man, we got a lot of stuff going on today, buddy. Like I said, I got a nice tomahawk today. I got a nice fresh pig just came in, dude. Nice fresh pig. Anybody want fresh pig? I got it. Just came in. Nice one.
Now, when you say that, you're saying they can come in and get the whole pig, or?
Whole pig, half a bill. It's already split in half. It's but people usually want pieces of that. You know what I mean? It's farm fresh stuff.
Wow.
Different.
Well, I mean, it certainly, and of course, Fridays is always a very special day over there. You have all kinds of things that you're working on, both, for people to come in and get ready to bring home and prepare at home, but also preparing a lot of foods for people, too.
Oh, yeah, dude. I got a lot of stuff. I just got a nice fresh batch of celebrity pork chops in. I got some nice tomahawk steaks. I'm looking at right now, I got some nice ribs, beef ribs, short ribs. Nice one, real fresh.
And, of course, being Lent season, you probably have a lot of folks that are coming in looking for fish and lobster and all the other great things that you carry.
Yeah, you got that. Today's fish, man. My mother's making nice fillets right now as we speak. Fillets, sardines, mackerels, nice and fresh.
So I'll ask you what I always ask you. What are you having this weekend?
Today, Lent, man, I'm going to have to have fish.
How many more weeks are left of Lent? Do you know? I don't know what Easter is.
Till Easter.
So I think you'll probably have a great opportunity to get some of that, get those tomahawk steaks, get those pork chops, and hold on to those for Saturday, right?
You got it, brother.
That's the way to do it. All right, and I want of course, everything that is over there at the Butcher Shop is fantastic. Of course.
You know what I got today?
Yes.
I got nice ceviche. You like ceviche?
I don't know if I've had it.
You never had it? It's made with octopus. It's a fresh salad, nice and cold with nice octopus, man. Really nice.
I love octopus. I just don't know if I've ever had it as ceviche. I'll have to come by and grab some.
Hey, you should, man.
Well, I got to say, you've got everything that everybody needs there. Beer and wine, everything you need, everything. You can do all your shopping right there at the Butcher Shop at 123 Dartmouth Street in New Bedford. Eric, I want to thank you for joining us, and I know you're probably starting to get ready for the St. Patrick's Day, too, as well. And
I'll have corned beef and cabbage, that's for sure. Everybody knows I have that.
Absolutely. So people can start marking it down that that's the place to go. The Butcher Shop, 123 Dartmouth Street in New Bedford.
Give me a call and reserve it now.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a great weekend.
You got it, brother. Bye-bye.
And again, 123 Dartmouth Street in New Bedford, the Butcher Shop. It is a real neighborhood market with everything that you need. I love going in there because you can find things that you won't find anywhere else, and they'll have everything else that you do need to have. All right, well, I'm going to be taking more of your phone calls at 508-996-0500 if you want to call in and chime in. If you want to have your voice heard, we were talking about the housing issue, and we got a few app chat messages that I want to share, talking about whether or not gentrification is coming to New Bedford, which you can read Ben Berke's great article at thepublicsradio.org. And I recommend giving it a read, and he has links to all of the research that he was talking about, so you can actually see the data for yourself as well. And JJ in Fairhaven says de-gentrification is happening simultaneously while the cost of apartments and homes increases along with the taxes, and therein lies the problem. See, it is. That's the point, is it's not really just one factor that's causing all of this. There's not, and the article from the quote from Tony Sapienza in the article is that people, let me give you the exact quote here. I think people want to look for a reason that they can understand, and something like the train is more understandable. And that's the thing, because it is such a multi-factor issue, it's hard to just point to one thing and say, this is the villain in this story. This is what's causing this to happen. And so the train becomes that scapegoat. TF Thumbs in New Bedford says, looking for properties to build, take all the unused city properties that are not producing taxes and develop them for housing. That includes these small dog parks like Washington Square, or the other in the south end that collect trash and produce no revenue. Well, you do have to have some balance of parks and public spaces, not only because it's the right thing to do, but you've got to do it. It's required. So you have to have some of that to be able to make the quality of life what you want it to be in a city. But there are a lot of unused properties that have languished for a number of years that the city is now starting to make moves toward getting those developed. So some of these empty schools that have been around forever, some of these abandoned buildings that the city is able to take control of, such as the New Bedford Armory. You know, these are going to be buildings and properties that will be turned around and turned into housing options down the line. That's my first guess, is every time that something goes empty and the city owns it, they're going to be looking to sell it off to a developer to turn it into housing because they know how badly it's needed. And there are other commercial properties that are being turned into housing from the private sector as well. The people have come in and purchased from one private party to another, and those people are looking to turn it into housing, into residential development. I'm going to take some more calls here, 508-996-0500, but I want to make sure that I let you know as many times as I can before I leave here this morning that Gas Express is saving you some major money today. Gas Express in New Bedford is celebrating Black Friday in March. All you have to do to save money is go down there and get yourself your gas at Gas Express right now, today only until midnight, $2.79 a gallon. We're talking 20, 30, 40 cents cheaper than you'll find it at some other places. $2.79 a gallon, today only until midnight at Gas Express. And while you're there, you know it's also the home of crispy, crunchy chicken. And not only is the chicken there fantastic, but you can get a whole meal there. You can get your chicken and your sides, and they've got beverages there. And for today and tomorrow, they're giving you a free 16-ounce Coca-Cola product with every chicken meal, and 2 free 16-ounce Coca-Cola products if you get a family meal. So that, combined with the $2.79 a gallon gas, is all part of the big celebration of Black Friday in March at Gas Express at the corner of Tarkin Hill Road and Belleville Avenue in New Bedford. All right, let's take some phone calls here. 508-996-0500. Good morning. You're next on WBSM.
Yeah, good morning, Tim. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
According to the Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, The city of New Bedford has right now affordable housing units, 5,169 affordable housing units, and we're number 4 in the state for the most housing units. And you're saying the proposal is to build 5,500 more units in the city?
Just general housing units. It doesn't have to be affordable housing units, just housing in general.
But we have prime commercial old mills that we can bring in companies and jobs because people need jobs. And I don't know if you noticed, Tim, driving around in our city, but these big storage facilities, these old mills are being converted to storage facilities, and it's popping up everywhere. And these are prime real estate commercial properties that are being squandered unless the mayor is thinking that the city is going to go in Chapter 9 and many people are going to be kicked out of their homes and to put all their stuff in there. Because I find it kind of weird that we have all of these storage facilities all over the place, cropping up everywhere.
Well, I think part of the reason why why the storage industry has become so big around here is because people are forced to. They can't get the home that they want to live in. They can't move from, say, Milton or wherever they're coming down from into New Bedford and find a place where they can have all their stuff. So they're moving into small apartments and they're putting their stuff in storage, which is why there's such a need for it.
You know why the need, and this goes to having jobs. If we don't have jobs for our city, for our residents here to get themselves out of poverty and buy a home and so forth, we're going to have the same problem. This is the Democrat, going back to Lyndon Johnson, this is their blueprint. Have all of these affordable housing units, no jobs, get you dependent on the government for programs, and it's just a downward spiral. We want jobs. I don't hear from the mayor. I don't hear from the city council. All we have is this wind turbine project that's we don't have little or no people from our city working over there. And we're just gobbling up all of these commercial properties for storage facilities and affordable housing units.
They put programs in place to try to hire local people for those wind jobs. We had Buddy Andrade in here talking about it. And, the mayor's pushed for somebody to come in and develop that portion of the golf course for the advanced manufacturing campus that they want to put over there. These will be good, high-paying jobs that local residents can come in and even if they're not fully trained for them yet, they're putting programs in place that will train them to be able to work in those industries. So they are trying. They just need somebody to come in here and actually do it.
When you know something, Tim, the golf course, he never said who these companies that were going to be coming in. I mean, anybody can say, well,
they don't have anybody yet. That's the problem. Nobody's tried to do it yet.
Well, if you look at the mayor, and he's 12 years going on to 16 years, what does he produce here for bringing in jobs for the people here and the residents of New Bedford? All the taxes keep going up. Your water and sewer keep going up. Many people have said it in the city, and small businesses are being clobbered. If you got to reduce taxes and the water and sewer fees to bring in a business, and all we talk about is building affordable housing units. I mean, that's why our city is tanking, and nobody wants to talk about it. Thank you for letting me on, Tim.
All right, you have a good day. And let's take another call here before we got to take a break. Good morning. You're next on WBSM.
Hi, Tim. I was calling in response to the caller prior to the last one, but I agree with what the last caller said. It's absolutely the sad fact. When the taxes and, the cost of living in general is basically skyrocketing, and the people that live in any given community are becoming lower and lower income and less homeowners and more renters, you need more services, road, first responders, school system. All the cost of running the city is going up, and the incomes are not. And then if you build more housing, you're just exacerbating the problem. So everything he said was accurate. Going in that direction, and they're like, well, the mayor's proposing this and that. People who have money, it's just a simple fact. Nobody's looking to throw their money away. No one's going to invest in a city where all of the city is just housing. You were right. You need parks. You need something that makes your, living decent. But if you just have housing and you're just not getting people investing. So it's just, you can see why people didn't invest in those areas. Massachusetts in general and this area as well, that's the direction we're headed in. Nobody's going to invest. It's a pipe dream unless we look at things from the opposite way. All right, Tim, have a good weekend.
All right, you as well. Take care. And I am going to take a break here. But just quickly, you know, this is kind of a shift in just American suburban and urban life that is going to be a big change going forward. And New Bedford might just be an example for it. So, you know, part of the reason why the city was so built up over the years was because of the industry that was here and the people needing to live near those industries. So, you know, go back to the whaling time when whaling was a huge industry and people were building the homes to live close to the waterfront so that they could be part of that industry. And then later on, the mills, the textile industry took over and people were living close to the mills so they could walk to work every day. And so that became part of the reason why areas got built up. Now we live in a time when people don't need to necessarily live near where they work because they can drive. Or if they don't drive, you know, obviously we'll have the train. So there's public transportation for people that want to take a 90-minute ride. But, and again, we say that all the time as if, you know, if you live in New Bedford and you get on the train, that means you have to work in Boston either. It just means you can work in Brockton, you can work in Stoughton, you can work in Taunton, you can work in Fall River. This will all be connected by train, so it makes it easier for people to get around. But we don't need to live where we work anymore. So then what are the reasons why people want to stay in a place? Well, it's because of that quality of life. It's because of that affordability. And if, you know, part of the problem here is we're talking about how people can't afford to live in New Bedford. Well, if they can't afford to live in New Bedford, and if there's nothing here that's helping them to stay here, and if they're going to pay all kinds of, maybe they start to leave New Bedford. And then what happens? Then you have a loss of the sense of community. You know, part of the concern with a lot of communities is when people move in, do they move in to stay? Do they move in to drop roots and to make roots and to raise a family and to have generations be here and to be part of the community and be invested in the community? Or do you have people that are just coming in and staying here because it's cheaper to live here and they don't really have that sense of pride in the community, and then that leads to problems like not taking care of their property. So there's a lot of factors that play into this. 508-996-0500. I'm going to take a break here. We'll be back in a few moments.
Just like everybody else. Pressure. You've only had to run so far, so good. But you will come to a place where the only thing you feel are loaded guns in your face, and you'll have to deal with pressure.
And one way you can take the pressure off your pocketbook or your wallet is by stopping by Gas Express in New Bedford today. As we are turning the calendar into a new month, as we are turning the calendar into March, Gas Express in New Bedford is celebrating Black Friday in March. They're saving you money all day today. Gas is just $2.79 a gallon, but only until midnight. So make sure you stop by and fill up. And, of course, Gas Express is also the home of crispy, crunchy chicken. And today and tomorrow only, you can get a free 16-ounce Coca-Cola product with every chicken meal and 2 16-ounce Coca-Cola products with every family meal. So head on down to Gas Express in New Bedford today and get your Black Friday deals in March. Free Coca-Cola with your chicken and gas for just $2.79 a gallon. Gas Express is located at the corner of Tarkin Hill Road and Belleville Avenue in New Bedford. If you're going to go there to get the $2.79 a gallon gas, which I'm sure many of you are, make sure you stop in and get yourself some of that chicken. They start serving it up at 11 a.m. It is so good. If you haven't had it yet, you've got to try it. Everybody keeps coming up to me and telling me how good that chicken is. I had people telling me last night at the bowling alley. People have been calling in and talking about it. So not only can you save on your gas, $2.79 a gallon today only, but you can also try some of that delicious chicken too. All right, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for Chris McCarthy, South Coast Now, coming your way. I'll be back on Monday, and we'll be turning on the light with Jack Spillane Monday morning. He has a great new article that kind of ties into some of what we're talking about here with some of the vacant buildings around.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.